The silence in pediatric room 314 was deafening. 8-year-old Marcus Williams, his small frame barely visible under the white hospital sheets, looked up at Caitlin Clark with eyes that seemed far older than his years. His voice was barely a whisper, but his words hit like thunder. "I just want to play basketball one more time before I can't anymore." Caitlin's hand froze on the Indiana Fever mascot she'd brought him. The doctors standing nearby exchanged glances that said everything. Marcus had been fighting leukemia for 2 years, and his recent scans weren't promising. But what happened in the next 10 minutes would prove that sometimes miracles don't come from medicine. They come from the human heart. This story starts in the most unexpected place and ends somewhere no one could have predicted. Let me tell you exactly how we got here. If you're watching this right now, I need you to do something before we dive deeper into this incredible story. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from, because what I'm about to share with you is happening in children's hospitals all across the world, and I want to know how far this message reaches. 3 weeks earlier, Caitlin Clark was doing what she'd been doing since her college days, something that most people don't know about her. Every month without fail, she visits children's hospitals, not for cameras, not for publicity, but because she once said it was one of her favorite activities during her time at Iowa. Today was supposed to be just another routine visit to the University of Iowa Stead Family Children's Hospital. Dr. Sarah Mitchell had been working at the Children's Hospital for 12 years, and she'd seen plenty of celebrities come through these doors. Athletes, actors, musicians. Most meant well, she knew that. They'd smile for photos, sign a few autographs, and leave feeling good about their charity work. But Caitlin was different. Dr. Mitchell had noticed it from the very first visit. Where others stayed for 20 minutes, Caitlin stayed for hours. Where others visited the common areas, Caitlin asked to see the kids who couldn't leave their rooms. Where others brought gifts and left, Caitlin brought herself. She listened. Really listened. That Tuesday morning started like any other. Caitlin arrived at the hospital wearing her favorite Iowa hoodie, carrying a bag full of small basketballs, Indiana Fever mascot toys, and her signature bright smile. The plan was simple. Visit the pediatric ward, spend time with the kids, maybe shoot some hoops in the hospital's small recreational area that had a basketball hoop mounted on the wall. The recreational area wasn't much, just a small space with that single hoop, some mats on the floor, and medical equipment nearby. But for kids who'd been stuck in hospital rooms for weeks or months, it might as well have been Madison Square Garden. The first few visits went exactly as expected. Caitlin met Emma, a 6-year-old recovering from heart surgery, who wanted to show her the drawing she'd made of Caitlin scoring a 3-pointer. She spent 20 minutes with Jake, a 10-year-old who'd broken his leg in 3 places but insisted he was going to be a point guard just like her when he got older. She played a modified version of Horse with Maria, a 12-year-old cancer patient who could barely stand but refused to stop trying to make shots from her wheelchair. Each interaction was precious, each smile worth more than any championship ring. But it was the visit to room 314 that would change everything. Marcus Williams had been at the hospital for 6 weeks. His parents, Jennifer and David, took shifts staying with him because someone needed to be there around the clock. David worked construction when he could, but the medical bills were mounting. Jennifer hadn't been to work in 2 months. They were the kind of family that worked hard, paid their bills, and never asked for help from anyone. But childhood leukemia doesn't care about work ethic or pride. When Caitlin knocked on the door to room 314, she found Marcus sitting up in bed, wearing a Golden State Warriors jersey that was 3 sizes too big for his thin frame. His head was bald from chemotherapy, but his eyes lit up when he saw who was standing in his doorway. "Are you really Caitlin Clark?" he asked, his voice hoarse from the treatments. "I am," Caitlin said, pulling up the chair next to his bed. "And you are?" Marcus Williams. I'm 8, but I'll be 9 next month." He paused, then added quietly, "If I'm still here." The weight of those 4 words hung in the room like a storm cloud. Jennifer Williams, Marcus's mother, was sitting in the corner chair where she'd spent most of the last 6 weeks. Her eyes filled with tears, but she quickly wiped them away. Marcus didn't need to see her cry any more than he already had. "He loves basketball," Jennifer said, trying to change the subject. "Before he got sick, he played in the local youth league. He was the smallest kid on the team. but he had the biggest heart. Marcus's face brightened slightly. I was good at free throws. I made 8 out of 10 in our last game before I had to stop playing. Caitlin leaned forward. She'd heard stories like this before, but they never got easier. Children who had their lives put on hold, dreams deferred, normal childhood moments stolen by illness. "Tell me about that game," she said. And Marcus did. He told her about the team, about his best friend Tyler, who played center, about the coach who always said defense wins championships. He told her about the gym where they practiced, with the squeaky floor and the hoop that was slightly crooked. He told her about how he was working on his jump shot, trying to be like her, trying to shoot from farther and farther away. As Marcus talked, Caitlin noticed something. Despite everything he'd been through, all the pain and fear and uncertainty, he still talked about basketball with pure joy. The same joy she'd felt when she was 8 years old, shooting on the hoop in her driveway until her parents called her in for dinner. That's when Marcus said something that made Caitlin's heart skip. "The doctors say I might not be able to play anymore. Something about my immune system and getting hurt." He looked down at his hands. "But I don't want to forget what it feels like. Before this conversation goes any further, I need to pause and ask you something. If you were in Caitlin's position right now, what would you do? How do you respond to a child who just wants one more chance to feel normal? Tell me in the comments, and while you're writing that, let me know where you're watching from too." Dr. Mitchell, who had been quietly observing from the doorway, saw the moment when Marcus's words hit Caitlin. She'd seen that look before, on the faces of doctors who had to deliver bad news, on parents who felt helpless, on children who understood more than adults wanted them to. But she'd never seen it on the face of someone with the power to actually do something about it. Caitlin was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked, "Marcus, what's your final wish? If you could do anything at all related to basketball, what would it be?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "I just want to play one more real game. Not just shooting around, but a real game with teammates and defense and everything. I want to remember what it feels like to make a good pass, or steal the ball, or maybe even score a basket while people are cheering." His voice got quieter. "I know it's silly because I'm not very good, but I just want to feel like a basketball player one more time instead of feeling like a sick kid." The room fell completely silent. Jennifer Williams covered her mouth with her hand. Dr. Mitchell felt tears forming in her eyes. But Caitlin? Caitlin smiled, not the polite smile of someone trying to be nice to a sick child, but the genuine smile of someone who had just figured out exactly what needed to happen. "Marcus," she said, "what if I told you that wasn't silly at all? What if I told you that was the most important thing in the world?" Over the next hour, Caitlin didn't just visit with Marcus. She planned. She called her assistant, her foundation coordinator, her contacts at youth basketball leagues. She called the hospital administration. She called equipment companies. Most importantly, she called other kids. By the time she left room 314 that day, the wheels were already in motion for something that had never been done before in the history of that hospital. The next morning, Dr. Mitchell got a call that surprised her. It was from Mary Coffin, the president of the Caitlin Clark Foundation. "Dr. Mitchell, we want to organize a special basketball event for Marcus and any other kids in your hospital who are well enough to participate. We're talking about bringing in portable hoops, organizing teams, having real referees, the whole experience. But we need it to happen in the next few days." Dr. Mitchell had worked with charity organizations before, but usually these things took months to organize. Background checks, safety protocols, medical clearances, insurance issues. "That's a beautiful idea," she said, "but the logistics alone would take weeks to sort out." "What if," Mary said, "we had the governor's office expediting the paperwork? What if we had the hospital's legal team working overtime? What if we had medical equipment companies donating portable units to monitor the kids during the game? What if we had pediatric specialists on standby? What if we had everything needed to make this safe and possible?" That's when Dr. Mitchell realized this wasn't just a nice gesture. This was a full-scale operation. Within 48 hours, the hospital's main corridor had been transformed. Portable basketball hoops had been set up at either end of the longest hallway. The floor had been marked with tape to create a miniature court. Medical monitoring equipment was positioned strategically around the playing area. Pediatric nurses were stationed every few feet. The hospital's recreation therapy team had organized everything down to the smallest detail. But the most incredible part wasn't the logistics. It was the response. When word got out that Caitlin Clark was organizing a basketball game for hospitalized children, volunteers started calling. Former college players, youth league coaches, referees, other WNBA players. Everyone wanted to help. Local news stations asked to cover the story. The governor issued a statement supporting the event. But Caitlin made one thing clear from the beginning. This wasn't about publicity. This was about 8-year-old Marcus Williams and kids like him getting to feel normal for one afternoon. The day of the game, Marcus woke up feeling different than he had in months. For the first time since his diagnosis, he wasn't waking up as a cancer patient. He was waking up as a basketball player. His mother helped him into his Golden State Warriors jersey, the one that was still too big, but somehow seemed perfect. Dr. Mitchell cleared him for 30 minutes of light activity with constant medical supervision. More importantly, she cleared 6 other kids from the pediatric ward to participate in what was being called the Great Hospital Basketball Classic. When Marcus was wheeled down to the main corridor in his wheelchair, he couldn't believe what he saw. The entire space had been transformed into a basketball arena. There were bleachers along the sides filled with hospital staff, other patients' families, and volunteers. There were official referees in striped shirts. There were team benches with towels and water bottles. There were even cheerleaders, volunteer high school students who had come to cheer for every single player. But the moment that took his breath away was when he saw Caitlin Clark at center court, wearing her Indiana Fever warm-up jersey, dribbling a basketball and waiting for him. "Ready for your game, Marcus?" she asked. For the first time in 2 years, Marcus Williams felt like the most important person in the world, and it had nothing to do with being sick. The game itself was unlike anything the hospital had ever seen. Marcus played point guard for the blue team, with Caitlin Clark as his teammate. The red team was coached by Kate Martin, Caitlin's former Iowa teammate who had driven up specifically for this event. The rules were modified for safety. The pace was slower than a typical game, and medical staff monitored every player constantly. But for 30 magical minutes, that hospital corridor was Madison Square Garden. Marcus made 2 assists in the first 10 minutes. He stole the ball once and passed it to Caitlin for an easy layup. When she scored, she pointed directly at him and shouted, "That's my point guard." The entire corridor erupted in cheers. But the moment that had everyone in tears came with 5 minutes left in the game. Marcus, who hadn't taken a shot yet because he was nervous about missing, found himself with the ball at the free throw line with no one guarding him. The entire game stopped. Every player, every referee, every spectator was watching this 8-year-old boy with leukemia who just wanted to remember what it felt like to be a basketball player. Caitlin called out from across the court, "This one's yours, Marcus. Take your time." Marcus looked at the basket, took a deep breath, and shot the ball with perfect form. The ball arced through the air in what seemed like slow motion. It hit the back of the rim, bounced up, hit the front of the rim, bounced again, and slowly fell through the net. The explosion of cheers was so loud that patients from other floors came to see what was happening. Marcus raised his arms in victory, and for that moment, he wasn't a sick child in a hospital. He wasn't a patient with a terminal diagnosis. He was just a 9-year-old kid who had made the shot of his life. Dr. Mitchell, watching from the sidelines, didn't even try to hide her tears. She had been a pediatric oncologist for 12 years, and she had never seen anything transform a child's spirit the way those 30 minutes did. After the game, as the equipment was being packed up and the corridor returned to normal, Marcus sat with Caitlin in his wheelchair, still wearing his too big Warriors jersey, still grinning from ear to ear. "Thank you," he said simply. "I'll never forget this." "Neither will I," Caitlin replied. "But Marcus, this isn't goodbye. The Caitlin Clark Foundation is going to make sure that kids like you never have to choose between fighting illness and chasing dreams. We're going to do this in hospitals all across the country." That promise wasn't just words. 6 weeks later, the Caitlin Clark Foundation announced a new initiative called Courts of Hope, a program to bring basketball experiences directly to children's hospitals. The program includes portable equipment, trained volunteers, medical supervision, and everything needed to give hospitalized children the chance to play the sport they love. The first grant of $22,000, Caitlin's signature number, went directly to the University of Iowa Stead Family Children's Hospital to establish a permanent program. But the real miracle wasn't the program or the money or even the game itself. The real miracle was what happened to Marcus Williams. 3 weeks after the basketball game, his latest scans showed something his doctors hadn't seen in months: improvement. Dr. Mitchell was careful to say that they couldn't prove the basketball game had anything to do with his medical progress, but she also said she'd never seen a child's spirit rebound the way Marcus's had, and sometimes spirit is the most powerful medicine of all. Marcus Williams is still fighting leukemia. Some days are harder than others, but now when he has his tough days, he doesn't just remember being a sick kid in a hospital. He remembers being a basketball player who made the shot when it mattered most. He remembers Caitlin Clark calling him her point guard. He remembers 30 minutes when he felt like the most important person in the world for all the right reasons. If this story moved you in any way, I need you to do 2 things in the comments. First, tell me where you're watching from, because stories like this are happening everywhere, and I want to see how far this message travels. Second, tell me which moment in this story hit you the hardest. Was it Marcus asking for his final wish? Was it seeing the hospital transform into a basketball court? Was it that moment when he made the shot? I read every single comment, and your stories matter to me. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest changes in the world. And sometimes all it takes is remembering that every child deserves to feel like a champion, even when they're fighting the biggest battle of their lives.